Hello, everyone. Here we have another episode of our podcast, and today the topic is really amazing and it's gonna help a lot of people that are still struggling with the diet, with the weight, with the stress, and we will understand why diets don't work. And we have arrived to a point where the advanced science of metabolism has enabled us to break through the different mechanisms of our body to regulate and to start helping us to make our bodies a hybrid system. And I'm going to explain what is happening inside of our metabolism that is playing against us and why it's not just about what you eat, but it's also about at what time are you eating and how many meals are you having, the things that are impacting your metabolic health and why your cortisol is creating that fat mechanism of creating your belly, your cortisol belly. So let's go with the topic and let's start with the different strategies that we can use. And so that you remember, the topic is stop starving your stress and the real reason you can't lose weight. So, in the beginning of times, we used to be obsessed about um, using the scale and looking for the calories in every meal that we had. So that's the myth of the thermodynamics. Calorie deficit is the only lever for weight loss. That's what we used to know in the past, and we used to trust that it was happening. But what happens with this neuroendocrine um, scenario that we are having now? The reality is that we have a neuroendocrine defense, and restriction is a stressor that aggravates the HPA axis. So you are creating more cortisol and creating more stress by being on a diet. The mechanism is that the defeat response, the chronic activation without resolution, flattens the cortisol curve and preserves the fat. So you are giving the wrong message in your brain and you are creating a new stressor in addition to the ones that you already have. And that's why you become obsessed and you can't comply with the diet and you feel guilty that you will not lose weight and you are afraid of the scale, etc. All of these things happen just in a matter of minutes, but you obsess with the weight and you are just creating a loop of being stressed and raising your cortisol, and that's why you are not losing the weight. So the root cause is that we have these lives that are used to not adjusting to nature, but adjusting to the multiple demands of people that are looking to have a social life. So our biological time is the interbody text that indicate the natural daylight progression. So we have these cues from nature that we are supposed to um, align with, but we have also the social cues, and those are the text and the things and the distractions and the social lives and the compromises that many of those multiple things that we have are just giving us the stress raising in our hormones. So this is the cue, either nature or your social life, and this cue is going to travel through the HPA axis and it's going to start awakening and it's going to start activating your circadian rhythm, your temporal circadian rhythm. Then you will start having this signal translated into the language that your mitochondrial engines are going to pay attention to. So every cue that you receive, either from nature and you pay attention or from your social life, is creating a chemical messenger pattern that can be understood by your internal clocks and by your mitochondria, which is the one that produces energy, and that also allows the multiple biological pathways or biochemical pathways to start uh, burning the fat and allowing you to produce energy from those fat systems. So, what is the first revelation that I can share with you? We have these internal alarm systems. The key mechanism in this one is that you have a localized reactivation. Visceral fat expresses high levels of this enzyme, 11B. The name is not important, but it's a dehydrogenase, and it's working as a cue that converts inactive cortisone into active cortisol inside our cells. So what does this mean? We have these multiple hormones and multiple messengers inside of us, but cortisol is one of the most unregulated um, substances that is creating the cues against us and is creating the cues to preserve the fat because we are under stress, because we might need this kind of energy in the future. So you are creating from this molecule cortisone, which is inactive in your system, more cortisol than the one that you are already creating with your emotions, with your stress, with all the multiple social cues. And the result is that we have a microenvironment of stress in the belly, even if the blood tests are normal. So this is just as in a molecular level, where many of these tests can't detect what is happening. You would have to do or perform a very specific test so that you can observe these effects. But now science has revealed these secrets that whenever we are stuck in terms of the weight that we want to lose and how we want to shape our body and how we don't want to accumulate fat, we are creating a loop of this system that I'm speaking about. So what is happening in another pathway where cortisol also plays a very important role? The insulin cortisol synergy, cortisol floats the blood with sugar for a fight or a flight event. Insulin then forces that sugar into visceral storage. So let's say that you have a meeting and you didn't prepare. So you are at your job and you forgot the meeting, you don't have anything prepared, you are under stress and you are creating a peak of cortisol very high in your blood. So that is also signaling at the same time for insulin to be released. And then the sugar that you have in your system from breakfast or from any of the meals that you already had, it's going to be now, instead of being used to give you energy, it's going to be forced into converting it to visceral storage for the future event that you are being stressed of. So this combination creates new fat cells in the abdominal cavity. And this is the adipocyte hyperplasia. What is this in regular terms? You are creating new fat cells. You are creating more fat instead of burning the one that you already have. Why? Because you are stressed and because you are creating two sources of stress. One that is mental due to this stress that you didn't prepare the topic. And the second one is the one that you are creating with the, let's say, co-regulation of cortisol and insulin. So cortisol and insulin are working together, but they are not working to favor you. They are working against you. And that is the other reason and the other loop. High cortisol mobilizes energy, and high insulin demands storage. And these mixed signals are creating the adipocyte hyperplasia, or the new fat cells that you are creating. So the second revelation is your circadian clock. What is this? Your circadian clocks are all of the clocks that you have inside of you. One of them is the most important, and it is the master clock in the suprachiasmatic region of the brain. And this master clock is sending the signals throughout our system, through the clocks of the other organs. And the conflict that is happening is that eating late prevents the body from entering in the repair phase. So digestion genes turn off at night. Late eating forces a construction site to stay open when it should be closed. So imagine what you're doing. You are also working against nature. Daylight is the time that you are supposed to use to energy mobilization, so that you can take advantage of all that requirements that you have throughout your day, so that you can burn the fat and all the nutrients that you ingested through your food. But what happens if you have a social regular eating pattern, which is late at night? Well, you don't give enough time and enough movement to your body so that it burns the energy. So what happens? Then you enter or you try to sleep, but then the conflict starts in your clocks. You have too much food, you are trying to sleep, but your system is not going to be able to enter into the repair and the autophagy that is supposed to happen during the night because you have too much food. There is a lot of traffic still, and your body is not able to recover from all that amount of food, or sometimes the amount of alcohol that you ingest late at night. So what is the solution? We have to pay attention to what nature is cueing us. So in the morning, we have a peak of insulin sensitivity. Food is processed efficiently. So that's why during the morning hours is when we are supposed to have one of our most vast meals. In the evening, melatonin rises, suppressing insulin. So eating here spikes blood sugar. And the data suggests that early time-restricted eating improves glycemic control and blood pressure better than late time-restricted eating. So what does this mean? In very simple terms, is have your meals before 6 p.m. Ideally. Ideally, you are supposed to have your 3 meals before 6 p.m. and then eat until the other day and leave at least 14 to 18 hours of fasting, so that these mechanisms of insulin and melatonin can act in the way they were designed. We are a hybrid machine, and our bodies work with less amount of food at night. And this is a very, let's say, primal understanding and primal learning mechanism that your body has been adapted to. But with the multiple demands of social life, we have disrupted this mechanism, and we have disrupted it so much that now we are creating these chronic loops of cortisol and the contradictory messages between insulin and cortisol. So what is happening in the mechanisms that are acting. We have a light switch, which is called the melatonin, and the blue light. The melatonin and the blue light are going to be activated by your screens. So if you are watching too much TV or any kind of screens that have this blue light, your eyes are metabolic organs, and blue light at night hits the melanopsin sensor. So this melanopsin sensor is tricking and is deceiving the central nervous system into the extension of the cortisol production window. And that is blocking the fat burning mechanism because you are deceiving your brain and you are creating again counteractive messages that is day, but it's night. So the messages are contradictory and your body is not able to pay attention to these multiple signals that you are contradicting. So what happens is that you create more cortisol, you are more stressed at night due to this activation of the melanopsin receptors, and then your body and your whole biochemical pathways think that they are supposed to store food, store fat, or translate all of the sugar, all of the carbohydrate production during the day that you didn't burn, and make it and transform it into fat. And what happens? You start gaining weight just because you are watching too much screen at night. And this works for any kind of age and gender. So this is just how our body works. Revelation 3. What is the cellular engine telling? Well, this is another researcher that is looking for this information, Dr. Martin Picard, and the previous information was from Sachin Panda. And the cellular engine is the mitochondrial psychobiology. Mitochondria are not just the powerhouses or the power plants of our body. They are also the drummers of the metabolic band. They detect stress and change shape. When the drummer loses the beat, the rhythm, due to the chronic stress, the entire metabolic performance collapses. It's just like imagining an orchestra and one of the players of the instruments didn't pay attention or was distracted or was stressed, and it starts creating noise and it starts disrupting the rhythm. What is going to happen? Well, the whole symphony is going to be disrupted and is going to be destroyed, and probably you will notice that there is a lot of noise. So that's what is happening inside of your body. This chemical noise, this hormone messenger noise that you are creating but by not following what nature is telling you, is what is causing the disruption in the mechanisms of your body and is creating the disruption of the release of cortisol and the contradictory signals of insulin. So finally, the engine stalls because it says it's too much noise, I can't pay attention, and I can't do my work with these contradictory signals. Imagine trying to concentrate for a test when you have a construction site right beside you, and the noise of the machines and the noise of the multiple vehicles that are very noisy when they are constructing something. So it's impossible. You need to use headphones and noise cancellation headphones and all of those things. Well, your body needs this peace. Your body needs this alignment with nature. And how can you help your body and every organ? Well, This is called when the engines collapses, is called metabolic sludge. And the uncoupling is stress causes inefficient fuel burning. So what happens when you are not burning the fuel? You are storing it. The sludge is the buildup of toxic lipid intermediates that blocks insulin signaling. So this hyperproduction of fat cells, of adipocytes, is creating a block in the insulin signaling mechanism. The result is that you are creating insulin resistance, and that occurs even without overeating. Look at this that I'm saying. You are creating insulin resistance without overeating because the cells are deafened by the sludge. So you can't pay attention because you can't listen. There's too much noise. So your system is not listening well to the cues. If you pay attention to what nature is telling you, then you will have clean energy system, just as this image is showing, the green. That's where we want to be. In the red, you are creating the noise, the chaos, and look how it looks. There is a lot of inflammation. There is a lot of alarmins, which are some of the most amazing messengers that are alarming your system and making you be stressed, even while you are sleeping. And this is creating inflammation inside of your mitochondria. And you are also creating a lot of lipid intermediates, which is the sludge that is not helping the machinery to work at peace and to start giving you, let's say, the biochemical output that you would like, which is losing weight, which is using your energy for the things that you want and not for storage. So, what are the things that I can recommend you so that you can start losing this belly fat? The first one and the most powerful, sorry, is starting to have a higher fasting period and having your meals before 6 p.m. Before 6 p.m., you should have your meals. And this is the open window between 8 and 10 a.m. and closing the window of eating, I'm referring to, between 4 and 6 p.m. So your maximum time is 6 p.m. Stop eating 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed, before you sleep. The goal is to align with insulin sensitivity and allow melatonin to rise. You will have a much better night. You will have a much restful night if you start paying attention to the cues of nature. So that's the protocol 1 that I can recommend you. Protocol 2, you are going to create recovery oscillations. Prioritize low intensity movement, more or less 150 to 200 minutes per week. That is not too much time. That is just 30 minutes, 5 days a week, more or less, so that you can create 150 minutes. So you can do walking, you can do swimming, you can do yoga, and you can use box breathing so that you can inhibit the cortisol release hormone. So let's start doing these recovery oscillations, which signal safety, and using this box breathing to calm our body and to send these signals to your body. So this is the first thing that you should be able to do to start moving the machinery. Then you can start doing higher intensity exercise once you regulate your system. And protocol 3, you can supplement. supplement with magnesium, 300 to 400 milligrams. This magnesium is going to lower the cortisol excretion and it will support ATP production. Why? Because practically all of the enzymes involved in the biochemical pathways that produce ATP and many of the enzymes inside of the mitochondria require magnesium to work. That's why. You can also start raising your omega-3s, and that reduces the mitochondrial alarmins, which are these messengers inside of your mitochondria that are creating the disruption of the signals or the noise in the signals. You can also start using ashwagandha, and this is another supplement, and you can use it in 250 to 600 milligrams. And this one is an adaptogen that reduces the serum cortisol to almost 20%. It's a natural herb, and you can use it to regulate your system as well. And you can start consuming green tea before 6 p.m. as well. And that is a natural inhibitor of the enzyme that is creating the cortisol spikes. So those are the 3 protocols that I can give you. Those are the strategies that I can suggest to you so that you can regulate more your machinery. But the main one is paying attention to your body signals and stop having such a hectic social life for a while so that you give time to your body to start regulating all the internal metabolic pathways. I hope that this episode has enlightened you in terms of the biochemistry that I shared and what is happening with us and why we can't lose weight and we are stuck at certain point. So it is not about the things that you eat only, it is also the timing at what you are eating. Thank you very much for paying attention. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will listen to each other next week. If you like this video, of course, recommend it, share it with other people, and give me a question, give me a like, and help me to subscribe in the other platforms, in the other podcast platforms. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.